This is news and commentary from America's Heartland. You're watching Heartlander News. Well, hey there, and welcome in to another edition of Heartlander News. I'm Chris Stigall. Bill Maher, not any friend to Republicans, certainly no friend to Trump, but increasingly over the years has had to confess Democrats don't seem to be getting it done. Their gaslighting isn't working. Where it is working, red states and Republican leadership. And he said so again this week on his show.
Did you know that a black fourth grader in Mississippi is 2.5 times as likely to be proficient in math and reading as one in California? Mississippi is kicking our ass in education, and for way less money. We're 37th in fourth grade reading, they're 9th. Texas is kicking our ass in green energy. The average time to get solar panels connected there is 3 to 4 months. About 1,000 days faster than it took me. Remember when I was trying to get my solar hooked up? It would have been quicker to build a windmill. Texas has passed California in solar and blows away California when it comes to wind and energy storage. How does a state with no pro-climate policies produce better climate results than a state where here, even though we have so much better stickers on our bumper Prius, well, whatever. Bumper stickers on our Priuses, you know what I'm saying. I'll tell you why, because you're allowed to build there. Because every third person in Texas isn't someone whose job it is to make sure nothing gets done. Democrats, these are your issues. Education, race, the environment, and I say this with love. You're losing to the Waffle House car on the lawn states.
Yeah, and so he can. I don't know. It kind of depends on who you, how you interpret Bill Maher, but he's either insulting red states in the South, or he's basically perpetuating that stereotype. People on the left think of them as Waffle House car in the front yard states, but neither here nor there. The point is, Bill Maher is making red states are actually governed well and getting it done. Blue states are not. And that's the real point of it. There was a guy named Mike Solana of a online publication called Pirate Wires. He has nailed a pretty concise and clear explanation of what Bill Maher just said, what's going on in the Democrat Party right now and the politics of that party. I mean, just take a look at Spencer Pratt in Los Angeles in that mayoral race. He posted, quote, "For people dumbly blinking at the moment while they wonder why Pratt is climbing up the polls, he's literally just telling the truth. And in a one-party state, anyone brave enough to break the honesty taboo commands the stage." Break the honesty taboo. I really liked that. He's right, of course. In Los Angeles, simply describing what's happening in front of everyone's eyes, it now comes across as rebellious. That's what decades of one-party Democrat rule does to a city. When one side controls the government, the media, the universities, and the cultural pressure points, honesty stops being normal. What you just heard Bill Maher say seems exceptional when we all knew, most of us who are paying attention and sane, we've known it's true all along. But now it's starting to feel dangerous to leftists telling the truth, honesty. Not because people can't see the problems, but because you're not supposed to speak of the problems out loud, as you just heard Maher and people like Pratt in his campaign. That's not supposed to happen. Homelessness in Los Angeles, for instance, it's driven by addiction, mental illness, crime, policy failure, and yet the official script still pretends it's mostly about sympathetic families down on their luck. When progressive policies keep failing, but admitting it might help the other side, well, you're just expected to stick to the script. The public watches the streets deteriorate, and they're told to pretend nothing to see here, everything's fine. This isn't just about Los Angeles, of course. It's really the definition, it's the defining feature of the National Democrat Party. For years, it was unacceptable to say the southern border was wide open and badly mismanaged. It was taboo talk to speak openly and honestly about Joe Biden's obvious cognitive decline. Even now, it's taboo for Democrats to admit that Obama's Iran deal simply gave the regime more time and resources on the path to a nuclear weapon. And of course, Democrats still won't acknowledge that Obamacare drove premium costs sky high, deductibles out of sight for millions of middle-class families, despite all the promises to the contrary. Right now, the Democrat Party refuses to admit, for instance, or even discuss the staggering waste, fraud, duplication, and bureaucratic self-dealing that DOJ and Vice President Vance's investigations have exposed. Because, of course, doing so would puncture the comforting myth that government agencies are competent, nonpartisan, and benevolent. And, of course, above all, it remains politically forbidden to give Donald Trump credit for any successes. You can't give him credit for energy independence or the Abraham Accords or the manufacturing boom or regulation reform, criminal justice reform, or the historically low Black and Hispanic unemployment numbers before COVID hit. If you acknowledge any of those things, well, it simply risks helping the wrong team for the Democrats. But here's the deeper problem. Political parties, they're just tribes competing for power. Every movement, right, left, or center, develops blind spots and incentives to protect itself. That's human nature to a degree. But a healthy system requires the willingness of those individuals to face reality, even when it embarrasses your own side. Donald Trump is hated by the left because he embraces reality and problem solving. And truth be told, he's hated by some who call themselves on the right, though one would question that label. The fact is, when truth becomes secondary to tribal loyalty, honesty turns into a real threat. A party, a group, an individual that can't admit failure, well, how can they identify it? How can they fix failure? Well, they can't. You can only deny, deflect, and smear critics as dangerous, punish anyone who points out what normal people can see with their own eyes. And that's why people like Spencer Pratt, or even people like Bill Maher, people like Donald Trump, it's why they provoke such intense anger from American leftists. They reject honesty taboos. They say in public what millions of people already believe in private. In a healthy political culture, that kind of honesty, it shouldn't feel revolutionary. As we've seen, the revolution, it depends on deceit and conformity. And we see it in three such stories today. From just the news, one of the stories that I think we've covered a lot, and I certainly did on my previous show, was the deception surrounding the Hunter Biden laptop and the entire Russia collusion hoax of Donald Trump's first campaign, Hillary Clinton framing that as such. Well, there's now a former senior intelligence community official under Barack Obama reporting concerns. It's been reported earlier this year that Hunter Biden's laptop letters signed by 51 former intelligence agencies, you remember that, the Hunter Biden laptop was initially reported. Mainstream media, along with social media, tried to silence anyone in conservative media from talking about it. And then this letter was issued, signed by 51 former intelligence officials who all said, that's a non-story. It's not real. The Hunter Biden laptop it's a Russian manufactured hoax. It's not real. Of course, we now know it is, of course, 100% real. But now, just now, as of this year, this is an Obama official, by the way, has stepped forward to say that that memo signed by the 51 intelligence agencies in 2020 bore characteristics, quote, consistent with coordinated intelligence deception operations. The concerns have now been referred to the Justice Department, a remarkable turnabout, writes Just the News, for a letter that was used 6 years ago to censor everyone from reporting factually based concerns about Biden family corruption. The October 2020 open letter released as voters were making final decisions about whether to re-elect Trump or elect Joe Biden. Now, you remember that laptop story, once it became evident that it was true after the election, and I put that in air quotes, of Joe Biden, I want you to remember that there were polls taken of people who voted for that husk. And in fact, 18% of those who voted for him said, had they known that the Hunter Biden laptop was true, had they known the stories of Hunter Biden globetrotting and bagging cash using daddy's name, they would not have voted for Joe Biden. And that would have, as you know how close that election was, that would have tipped it to Donald Trump in the first place. Again, folks, I choose to believe, you don't have to share this point of view, but I think it's biblical. I think what happened in 2020 and I think what happened in 2024 are exactly as God designed it. I don't think there are any accidents. I think even the deceit and the outright theft and the cheating of the 2020 election, I think it had to happen, because I think global events and this kind of reordering that we're living through right now, it could not have happened if Donald Trump had won legitimately in 2020. So in its own perverted way, we had to go through 4 years of lying and deceit and gaslighting and cheating just to get to a point where I think the country said, yeah, enough. In fact, I think we have 2020, interestingly, to thank for the likes of a Spencer Pratt or the monologues from Bill Maher. I really do. And now more of this stuff is coming to light, and I think it's only going to continue to compound the problem for Democrats. This open letter released in 2020, again, as you remember, signed by the 51 intelligence agencies. A former official named Thomas Coons, who submitted a memo recently to the Intelligence Community Inspector General. He was a senior intelligence officer and former advisor to the Deputy Director of National Intelligence during the Obama administration. So this is a big guy, this Thomas Coons, senior leadership in Obama's intel community. And Coons has now told the Inspector General that most of his career in government centered on maintaining the intelligence community's analytic and integrity standards. Well, his spidey senses and alarms were tripping all over the place back in 2020 when this memo came out. Of course, he was working in the Biden-Obama administration, so there wasn't much he could say about it, or at least he was loyal to them at the time. This is not a political statement, he says. This assessment is based on the research and analysis of testified behavior, language choices, omissions, coordination, and effects attributable to intelligence tradecraft, he wrote. Pro-Biden advocates warned the public reporting on the contents of Hunter Biden's personal laptop before that it bore, the reporting bore all the hallmarks of Russian disinformation campaign. Then candidate Joe Biden used the letter to fend off public criticism about his son's overseas business dealings, drug use, and alleged influence peddling. This analysis is grounded in my expertise, writes Coons, applying analytic integrity standards and intelligence tradecraft to evaluate raw and finished intelligence assessments and judgments. Those standards provide a framework to identify politicization, bias, and analytic weakness, as well as to identify whether intelligence tradecraft itself has been misapplied or misused. Ultimately, by applying this framework, Coons concluded, and listen to this, here's the money, the planning, drafting, and dissemination of the Hunter Biden laptop letter, signed by 51 former intelligence officials, exhibited characteristics consistent with coordinated intelligence deception and tradecraft. Again, this is according to a note from Coons that was handed over to the Intelligence Community Inspector General. So if you want to read this in full detail, it's a long read, but I wanted to call your attention to it. The gaslighting of 2020 now being uncovered and admitted to by even people inside Obama's and Biden's intel ranks. This was a deception operation from the jump. 51 people signed off on a memo that itself was a disinformation operation. Just like the Russia collusion hoax was a disinformation operation before it in 2016. That's all the Democrats have. Again, as I say, a revolution, a takeover of this country depends on deceit and then conformity to continue buying into and selling the deceit. That's the only way Democrats can win. Then, also from Just the News, over at CBS, they're run by a new show, a new sheriff, Barry Weiss. We played for you last week, Katie Couric, and what's that goon's name over there at CNN? I've forgotten his name. It's good to forget his name, really. Why do I have forgotten that guy's name already? It doesn't matter. Anyway, Jim Acosta. That's what. Thank you, Jim Acosta. That goon. Anyway, CBS News. They were both whining over there that they'd hate what CBS and CNN have become, propaganda arms. Well, propaganda arms or people just telling the truth. CBS News was the first major network to break the mainstream media blackout on the suppression of COVID-19 shots by the Biden's FDA. Senator Ron Johnson thanked CBS News Washington correspondent Major Garrett on his program, The Takeout, for covering the panel's findings. After asking Johnson about the war with Iran and the Justice Department's proposed weaponization fund, Major Garrett asked Ron Johnson, "What are you driving at by telling Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. that President Biden's FDA deliberately used a system incapable of truly identifying safety signals?" Well, no other major news network covered the subcommittee report that's been out now for weeks, said Ron Johnson in response. Thanks to RFK's radical transparency, the panel learned that in March 2021, then Center for Biologics Evaluation and Research Director Peter Marks was briefed about the problematic algorithm the agency used to analyze the vaccine adverse event reporting system. Less than a month after the data mining actors told Marks the algorithm was going to hide and mask safety signals for COVID jabs, they showed him a new algorithm that unmasked 49 cases of extreme masking under the old algorithm. Over the next 3 months, the data miners found more safety signals and presented their findings to Marks, who nonetheless decided to stick with the old algorithm and lied to the American public, calling it, Ron Johnson says, the biggest government scandal in my lifetime. He said the panel is digging into a separate little cover-up of COVID shot vaccines, the FDA's evaluation of 96 child deaths, some with autopsies. When Garrett responded with estimates that the COVID shot death rate for children was lower than their rate for ibuprofen, Johnson said the panel's 2023 analysis found 25.5 deaths per million doses given versus 0.46 for the flu vaccine. So what are we saying here? Ron Johnson, RFK Jr., over there at the FDA, there's a belief now that the harms associated with that mandated shot, pushing it specifically on kids who were never vulnerable to COVID to begin with, pushing that stupid shot on our children was leading to, I'll just put it at negative effects, because I don't have the data in front of me. I'll just say leading to negative effects, perhaps death. Johnson says there's data. Johnson says that under the Biden era, again, at FDA, much like at FBI and CIA, things were suppressed to keep it from the public. The revolution depends on deceit and conformity, folks. That's all you need to know. Deceit and conformity. One more on this note of deceit and conformity. And it's maybe less severe as the other two, but I enjoy it. The Washington Nationals. Remember last week we told you about James O'Keefe going undercover and talking with the former team executive about their too Catholic-y, too Jesus-y pitcher? Well, the Washington Nationals have now parted ways with that senior community relations executive following the release of that hidden camera video that allegedly shows him discussing internal decisions tied to a player's public political and religious views. Once again, the footage published by O'Keefe, James O'Keefe, and his media group. The executive heard describing how the organization limited the use of a pitcher in a promotional content social media video. The comments suggested the decision was influenced by the player's outspoken conservative Christian beliefs and his objection to the Dodgers' LGBTQ-themed promotion. So again, sunlight, the best disinfectant, more sunlight, more exposure, and the walls come crumbling. Again, I have to stress one more time. Leftists' revolution, leftists toppling this country, depends on deceit and conformity. That's it. Lie, gaslight, and then demand everyone around them continue to do the same to breed conformity and silence anyone who dares challenge it. Give me 186 here, Aaron. Look at the governor of New Jersey, for instance. These ICE protests and the recent detainees, all the hullabaloo outside the New Jersey ICE facilities. Would it surprise you to learn that that's not organic? It was more bought and paid for theater? Yeah.
We know that people from outside the state have been interfering in the protests and escalating them. 5 of the 6 people arrested last night by state police were from outside New Jersey. And some national extremist groups have become involved in the protest here today. To the people coming from out of state to create chaos and dangerous situations, you should not be here.
So there she is, the Democrat left-wing wacko governor of New Jersey, even confessing that the people who are causing all of the ruckus and all of the law breaking and getting all the media attention are out-of-state agitators. The revolution depends on deceit and conformity. Are you getting the theme? I hope so. There's just an overwhelming preponderance of it today, is there not? Culturally, within government, on your favorite news channel, the stuff you're hearing and reading and seeing, challenge it. And is there any wonder why young people in this country right now are at an all-time cynical high? They believe nothing. It's frustrating. You know, I have a 21, 20, and 18-year-old children, 2 sons and a daughter. All of them, and I'm proud to say, all of them are curious. All of them are independent thinkers. I raised them all to question. But our institutions, frankly, and so much of what I've just shared with you, and there's much more, there are many more examples of it than just what I've shared. You know, when you've been fed a steady diet of that in your young life, and you're already kind of counterculture as it is, young people tend to already kind of look at people in power or wanting that nugget of freedom in their own lives. They look at authoritarian behavior with suspicion. Well, now look at all of these lies. Just the pit of hell lies about gender, for instance, and men can be women and compete against women. Look, that's still going on out in California. From the post-millennial, boy wins California State girls triple jump and high jump championships, shares the podium with real female winner. A transgender identifying biological male athlete placed first in the California State girls triple jump on Saturday, sharing the top podium spot with the actual female winner and being awarded a gold medal first. Still goes on. Again, the revolution depends on deceit and conformity. Everybody knows men can't be women and women can't be men. Everybody knows you're born one gender and that's it. Everybody knows there is not more than one gender. Everybody knows that. But they lie to you. They look you straight in the face and say ridiculous things like James Tallarico. Give me number 185. Bill Maher is back, pointing out the fact that, look, he can try to take it back. He can say, well, that was a dumb thing to say. But James Tallarico, the supposed preacher down in Texas, a Democrat, running eventually now against Ken Paxton, the Republican, Bill Maher is complaining here in clip 185 that James Tallarico is being smeared and framed as something he's not. He's talking with his panel. Kevin McCarthy is one of them, and making the point that he said some really stupid stuff, and now it's coming home to roost.
Okay, so you have Attila the Hun on this side. Then we have this guy, James Tallarico. We had him on the show recently. I mean, he seemed like a nice guy. He seems very reasonable. They're spreading rumors that he's gay, or even worse, vegan.
In Texas, vegan is worse.
No, I'm telling you.
But wait a minute. He said he ran a vegan campaign.
He said what?
He's on video running a vegan campaign. That doesn't play well in Texas.
No, he said some things that don't play well in Texas, like God is non-binary, which if there is a God,
he's taken that back. He said it was a silly thing for him to say.
it is a silly thing to say because it just looks bad on a poster or an ad. Okay, but listen. Okay,
All right.
so you have a
So, and you know, Katie, I love Katie Tour jumping in. Oh, he's taking that back. He's taking that back. So what? So what? It's like the Obama, it's like this Obama intelligence official coming forward to say that memo, 51 intelligence officials signed off on a memo saying the Hunter Biden laptop wasn't real. Okay, we know that now. We know it was now an opposition. It was totally fraudulent. the Hunter Biden laptop was real, and those that signed off on a memo saying it wasn't real, that was the actual operation. We know that now, but the damage has been done, you see. So it's like for Katie Tur to jump in and say, oh, James Tallarico, he's taking that back. He says that was a stupid thing to say. He didn't mean to say. He said it, Katie. Like, you can't be a man of the cloth and say those things on the record, and then when you're running statewide for Senate, say, oh, never mind, I take it back. Or, oh, sorry about that COVID shot. Turns out it didn't work and actually may have actually done harm and maybe even killed kids. Sorry about that. I don't know, folks. This frosts me. The revolution, of course, depends on deceit and conformity. And it's only when sunlight is shown on all of this that the American public actually can vote with real information, not gaslighting. And when they're given real information, they do, in fact, change their minds. When the truth is told and they're exposed to the ruin of the Democrats, voters change their minds. And that's what's got Democrats so scared.